It's odd how the things we once believed to be irreparable turn quietly to dust. Sometimes not even with one big explosion, but the gradual, silent disintegration of all that held a family together. For years, millions of us watched the Brown family, a tale sold to us as love, religion, and unity. On the surface, it seemed like a large, messy, but working family. They laughed, celebrated, and rode out storms together. But along the way, something changed. The glow began to fade. The smiles became stiff. And behind those ostensibly carefully constructed moments, something darker began to cultivate. What do you do when the man who was once a family's heart becomes its greatest source of pain? What do you do when trust becomes performance and family becomes a script? You can sense it when you see their faces now. The twinkle's missing. The dialogue feels scripted, and the individuals who once held on to the dream have begun to move away, one at a time. Christine, Janelle, Mary, these women who used to bear the burden of Kody Brown's universe, are now discovering something he never anticipated. True peace. The kind that doesn't air on television. And perhaps that's why it's become intolerable for him. Because for a man like Kody, peace isn't a resolution, it's the end of his viewership. He was never constructed to be quiet. He feeds off attention, off drama, off the constant game of who's in and who's out. When a narcissist loses their audience, they don't find redemption. They seek out a new crowd. And then Robin. Once the shy favorite wife, she was at the empire's center, the chosen one. But the throne she battled to hold now resides in an empty room. The competitors are absent. The house is still, and when the cheering dies down, what remains for a queen without a kingdom? This isn't simply a tale of a marriage that failed. It's a tale of control, of how love can become leverage. It's a tale of children who learned far too young that vulnerability could be monetized as a TV moment. It's a tale of a father who berates his children for crying, yet shows up with a smile on his face when the cameras are rolling. And if you've ever seen a family disintegrate from within, not with screams but with silence, you'll know this tale in your bones. That hidden treason. That moment when the people you believed would stand up for you begin performing instead. The fissures began years prior, but they were subtle. A passing remark here, a cold shoulder there. Then, incrementally, those cracks grew. Suddenly, it was no longer about plural marriage. It was about ego, about power, and about who got to narrate. For Aspen, for Gwen, for all of the kids, backing away wasn't defiance. It was surviving. Because some pain doesn't have to be announced to exist. Some healing only occurs when the cameras are turned off. And for Robin, the woman who once thrived in the chaos, there's a new kind of silence setting in. She fought to be the last wife standing. She got her wish. But what happens when being the winner feels more like losing everything? There's something painfully familiar about this. So many of us have had a Kody. A man who asks for loyalty, but gives nothing in return. Who takes every tear and turns it into blame. Who thinks their hurt is more important than anyone else's. It's not about polygamy. It's about power. And how power corrupts love until it's almost not love anymore. And that's what makes this chapter of Sister Wives so haunting. Not because it's shocking, but because it's real. It's the type of slow heartbreak that doesn't always make the headlines. But it lingers. We've watched Kody shrink his circle down to one woman. But in doing so, he's also stripped away the illusion. Without the chaos, the man himself stands exposed. Not a patriarch, not a leader, just a man desperate to hold on to a crumbling story. And Robin, she's finding out that capturing the crown isn't worth much when there is no one to reign over. No sister wives to contend with. No children looking for validation. Just empty rooms and fading lights. For years, this family welcomed us into their parlors. They allowed us to think we were observing a big experiment in love and religion. But now, what we see is a cautionary tale of ego, control, and what it costs to make your life a performance. Maybe you've seen it too. In a friend's marriage, a fractured family, or even in your own life. That feeling when someone turns your pain into their show. When your story is no longer yours to tell. This is no longer reality TV. This is the reckoning. And at the end of it, the Browns will be forced to confront the one truth no editing camera can remove. When the spotlight dies, the real story finally sees the light of day. So, let's pull back the curtain. Let's talk about how it all began to crack. And why this isn't just the end of a show. It's the unraveling of an empire built on borrowed love. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the loud ones, they're the quiet ones. The ones that linger long after the credits roll. And trust me, this one lingers. For the most part, it's Kody, me, and the kids. But come on, Kody Brown didn't become a better father overnight. He just finally got a better camera shot. There's a unique type of irony that reality TV alone can portray. So keen. It's almost as if it's scripted. In the most recent season of Sister Wives, we find Kody, once the stereotypically absent dad, suddenly serving as devoted dad. There he is, softening 13-year-old Solomon's hair and assisting the younger children with school preparation. The scene is unmistakably set to leave audiences feeling all warm and fuzzy. A redeemed dad, a healed family. But rather than sentimental, it feels somewhere between a Hallmark movie audition and a middle-of-the-night infomercial for Fatherhood, the sequel. Let's get real here. A teenager getting his dad to comb his hair isn't sentimental parenting. It's cringe at best and outright performative at worst. And when you compare it to the early seasons, it's glaring. When the show started, Kody's oldest, Logan, was only 16 years old, nearly still in boyhood himself. He was the one waking up the younger kids, making breakfast, and getting everyone out the door like a mini parent. Meanwhile, Kody drifted between wives like a man seeking sainthood through avoidance. Logan wasn't parenting because he chose to. He was parenting because Kody wouldn't. Now, years down the line, that same fellow who passed on the task of fatherhood to a teenager is now learning the sacred art of brushing hair. Conveniently, just as the cameras start rolling. And wouldn't you know it, this new sentimentality is focused primarily on Robin's children. It has that familiar smell of the second chance dad syndrome, when a guy dodges fathering the first batch of offspring, then becomes father of the year with the second. Typically when the house is less raucous and the lighting is improved. While the younger children are left to observe the rebranding. As Gwendolyn Brown has explained, she's glad her younger brothers and sisters have a current father, but there's a genuine pang in knowing she was not offered the same model of him. That distant bittersweet sadness, seeing your parent act out the love they never showed you, is likely the truest moment of this entire narrative. But naturally the showmanship doesn't end there. We have the montages of the school day, the immaculately posed family vacations, the piercing spiritual milestones. Kody and Robin's family increasingly resembles a slick infomercial for godly parenting. As seen on TV, every move shouts, "Look at how redeemed I am." What's the payoff? Less reformed father figure. More PR intern with a ring light. Even the editors at TLC appear to be aware of the joke. The transition from Kody's midlife parenting moment of realization to aged footage of Logan filling in as a parent, it's devastating. The edit that conveys everything and doesn't require narration. Underneath the glitzy scenes is a hard reality. Neither overburdening the older children nor coddling the younger ones is healthy. Kody has not become a better parent. He's simply fluctuated from one extreme to the other. His older children were thrust into adulthood far too prematurely, and his younger children are being kept in a bubble long beyond the time of independence. And poor Solomon, a teenager now, is not only stuck with his dad's unwelcome hands-on fathering, but that it's all being done in front of the nation. It's not difficult to picture the crap he'll catch at school when your first day of school photo resembles it was ripped directly from Pinterest. In the end, what we're witnessing isn't redemption. It's reenactment. Kody has spent years confusing being on camera with being a good man. And now, with ratings dipping and public patience wearing thin, he's trying to reinvent himself as the caring patriarch. But here's the real heartbreak. For his kids, the cameras don't turn off when the director yells cut. They capture every hollow moment in high definition. Polygamy was what they called it. He referred to it as a fan club. This is the unpalatable reality about Kody Brown's so-called marriages. Kody lives for attention the way the rest of us breathe. His plural marriage had nothing to do with faith or family values. It was all about having a following, a gathering of wives and kids revolving around his ego. When each of his wives eventually ceased to attend Church of Kody, he considered it betrayal. Now that his formerly full household is dwindling and his TV stardom waning, he's looking for a new platform. His time on Special Forces? That wasn't spiritual development. It was merely scratching the celebrity bug. And you can be sure if another show like Big Brother comes a-knockin', he'll jump at that chance as well. Anywhere he can wear the misunderstood patriarch hat and bask in the limelight. And when a woman, any woman, gives even a whisper of admiration, those soulmate promises to Robin may disintegrate faster than the family did. If this reads like the beginning of the middle-aged man in crisis movie cliché, well, that's because it is. Kody nearly employs sister wives as an infomercial for future wives. Even Robin, once the pet favorite, can spot it, and it's pushing her to the edge. The irony is thick. She entered the family as the favored one, and now she's suffering the same gradual fade into insignificance as the others. Of course, the potential suitor pool isn't full to overflowing. But chaos does have its fringe fans. After all, folks have wed actual prisoners. Kody's just emotionally imprisoned. For someone somewhere out there, he may still be a TLC fast pass to fame. But here's the actual tragedy. There never was a great love story to start with. Kody and Robin's relationship was founded on an us against them fantasy, a mutual delusion that romanticized polygamy. But the plural marriage broke up, and so did the attention-seeking. As the years go by, it's obvious even monogamy fails to capture his interest. His background didn't help matters either. In the environment he came of age in, women beyond a certain age are discreetly shunted aside, spiritually and sexually done. Robin, having previously suggested having another child in order to continue holding his interest, now sees that same script being played back on her. For Kody, love is not affection, it's validation. He needs someone younger, someone who affirms him, someone who lets him know he's still in the game. And don't get it twisted. Kody doesn't love Robin. He never loved any of them. What he loved was the sensation of being worshipped, of being the focus of a universe composed solely of women who catered to his every whim. When that orbit collapsed, so did his sense of self. That's why we see all these land deals, forced reconciliations, and therapy sessions that feel more like theater than healing. It's all part of stretching out a fading franchise. Expect vow renewals, healing retreats, maybe even a last-minute crisis to keep the show alive. Kody can't live without the spotlight, and reality TV has become his last remaining stage. He's not only losing wives, he's losing control of the narrative. Christine, Janelle, and even Mary, the women who left, are finally discovering something invaluable: peace. And let's be real, peace doesn't make great TV, but it creates a much healthier life. Sadly, Kody Brown hates peace. So when things settle down, he stirs up trouble. If there is no conflict, he'll create some. If nobody is looking, he'll get their attention. And once a narcissist loses his audience, they don't magically become better people. They just shop around for a new crowd. Consider Aspen. She asked her dad that one sincere question, a daughter wanting to know why her dad doesn't like her. An uncomfortable, vulnerable experience. But on the Sister Wives show, vulnerability doesn't remain personal. It becomes material. Kody took what would have been a quiet, sincere chat with his daughter and made it TV drama. And then Robin, ever devoted to his story, appeared on camera and referred to Aspen's sincere question, a confrontation. That moment said everything about how Robin sees reality. It wasn't just tone deaf. It showed a stunning lack of self-awareness. Aspen wasn't rebelling. She was reaching out. But in their world, emotional honesty gets twisted into attack. This has become their pattern. Kody and Robin expose everyone else's private pain, but fiercely guard their own. Remember when Kody refused to talk about his and Mary's crumbling marriage on camera? Suddenly, privacy mattered. But when it's one of the kids' pain? Lights, camera, heartbreak. Robin, as always the producer's darling, appears to be just fine with everyone else's growth being put on display, just not hers. And when the spotlight begins to swing in her direction, the cameras conveniently go out. It's not surprising that most of the adult children have distanced themselves. They've seen, year after year, as their personal wounds were massaged for ratings. Isabel's surgery plot was yet another heartbreaking instance. What could have been something about love and tenderness became sensationalism. The show once promised to give viewers an honest look at a big, complicated family. But these days, what's left is a hollow sequel starring a father emotionally checked out, a wife living in denial, and the echo of a plural marriage that fell apart a long time ago. In the meantime, Aspen is discreetly creating her own life, a marriage, a child, a future that is not a product of TLC. She's kept her child out of the camera lens, not out of coldness, but out of love for her own family, not wanting to see them exploited for material the way she was. Really, that's the most rational decision anybody in that family's made in years. With Christine removed, Mary and Janelle out of the picture, and the kids backing away, what's left of sister wives? A divorced guy, a wife with a spending addiction, and a dwindling sense of purpose. Kody's charm, if you can even credit him with that, always drew on the mayhem. Tofu, it absorbed only the taste of the drama it surrounded itself with. Now, with all there was to absorb gone, he's plain air with a camera crew. And Aspen's silence? That's her last word. And it's more ringing than anything Kody's ever uttered on camera in years. Kody Brown shows you don't have to put your hands on a child to hurt them. All it takes is to call their hurt manipulation. In Christine Brown's book, she remembers an episode that quite encapsulates Kody's brand of fatherhood. When their daughter Gwen wept upon discovering he wouldn't be coming to her engagement party, Kody dismissed it with, "Don't try to manipulate me with your tears." That was not a boundary. That was punishment. And it was not out of nowhere. Kody had been seething since Gwen had ever had the temerity to suggest that Robin would use tears to control a family meeting. So, when Gwen did cry, of course breathtakingly, he jumped. He used her own words against her like a cudgel. In Kody's universe, emotions are treacherous, but only when his children experience them. His emotions? Untouchable. Theirs? Manipulative. Yes, Kody did go to the engagement party, but not out of fatherly affection. The actual attraction? The TLC camera crew. No cameras, no Kody. His appearance wasn't an expression of love. It was a business move concealed behind a phony smile. This is now a habitual pattern. His love or lack thereof is always a transaction. When the cameras are on, he's daddy. When they aren't, he's not around. Even in mundane situations, his immaturity shows through. The other day he griped to Robin because young Solomon put Kody's phone in his pocket, leaving Robin to roll her eyes like a frazzled mom coping with quarreling children. Kody was not the father at that time. He was the oldest, whiniest child in the room. And then there's his selective attendance at milestones. Showing up, or refusing to, is his favorite tool of control. He used it at Logan's wedding, and countless other moments we'll never see on TV. Every absence is a message. Every appearance is a performance. Christine's kids have been basement kids for a long time, a nasty term for their status in Kody's emotional pecking order. His bitterness toward Christine's independence. And now her joy with David Woolley goes deep. But as soon as those TLC cameras sealed the deal that they'd be at Gwen's bridal shower, suddenly Kody mustered up the nerve to appear. His fathering is contingent on cameras. The payoff was a rigid, empty exhibition of daddy acting that worked better on television than it probably did in life. But for Gwen and her fiancé Ben, at least the cameras promised one token blessing: their father finally did show up. They called it faith. It was really foreplay disguised as doctrine. In season 17, Robin Brown inadvertently disclosed more about herself and Kody than decades of tearful couch interviews ever had. Mourning Christine's decision to get divorced outside of the church, Robin opined, a bit too confidently. Technically, in my understanding, until Christine is physical with another man, she's not divorced. It was smug. It was incriminating. And then, catching on to what she'd just suggested, she hastily retreated with a discomfited "but I don't know." That little exchange would reveal more than any confession ever would. That hesitant step back wasn't modesty at all. It was a reaction to the burden of what she'd just confessed aloud. Her own words meant so much more than she likely intended. She was religiously framing it. Yes, but come on. Robin wasn't teaching doctrine. She was rationalizing conduct. It's easy to picture that she and Kody once applied exactly this kind of reasoning to grant themselves spiritual justification for their own pre-wedding intimacy. I mean, Kody was taking those 4-hour weekly drives from her hometown into town many years before they got married. And being aware of Kody, the fellow who once bragged he was much too noble to sleep on a couch, are we really expected to think he was suddenly an exemplar of purity? Please. This is a man who doesn't do couches, but we're expected to think he did abstinence. Their whole purity act has always felt more like a performance than a practice. Robin's soft, pious talk about sacred covenants came with an 11-day honeymoon, while Kody ignored 3 other wives and 13 children. But apparently, Christine moving a few books into the garage was the real scandal. What's impressive isn't so much Robin's hypocrisy, it's her audacity. She lectured Christine for not keeping the honeymoon flame alive, even showing up to inquire why Christine wasn't providing Kody with massages. Later, she instructed Christine to keep my relationship out of your mouth, forgetting that she'd spent years publicly picking apart everyone else's. And naturally, her children repeated her words regarding other wives' marriages, evidence that sacred adult conversations only appear sacred when cameras are present. The hypocrisy goes deep. Robin's so-called religiosity has ever curved to whatever she wanted. A woman who used to preach moral purity somehow managed to depict her premarital relationship with Kody as heaven-ordained. A religious fairy tale in which deserting her first marriage and being with Kody was part of some divine master plan. In her head, their relationship wasn't just love. It was destiny, God-ordained, more special, more sacred, more actual than all of those mundane marriages Kody had prior. And when Kody said it all changed after their honeymoon, because the other wives were jealous, he conveniently omitted the actual story. It wasn't jealousy, it was fatigue. 11 consecutive days of Kody and Robin's epic love story, while the other wives remained at home, managing homes and raising children. But somehow they were the issue. Here's the kinky part of their moral accounting. Christine was allegedly not actually divorced until she was with another guy. While Kody could have 4 women share a roof with him and remain the self-styled patriarch, Robin's religion, it appears, permits indulgence for herself and judgment for all others. When you take away the spiritual window dressing, what you're left with isn't faith, it's ego. Their alleged holy matrimony isn't holy. It's a fantasy that they created for themselves. And like all of their shows ever, it's beginning to unravel at the seams of its own hypocrisy. Robin battled for the throne, but now she's the queen of nothing. There was a time when Robin Brown nearly radiated in the spotlight of her own fairy tale. The accepted wife, the demure victim, the favored one in Kody's maelstrom kingdom. But more recently that glow had begun to dim. What audiences are witnessing now isn't love. It's something more leisurely, quieter, an emotional unraveling. The lady who hugged Kody with tear-filled passion before appears distant, numb. It's the kind of distance that insinuates itself when the heart's already halfway out the door. Their dialogues on television look orchestrated, as if they've learned their lines beforehand. Each word, each sigh, each well-timed tear drops with the stodgy awkwardness of 2 individuals attempting to convince themselves and the world that their love tale is alive. But Kody, ever the king of improvisation, can't resist going off script. And when he does, the cracks in their fairy tale show more than ever. The end result of all this? A maelstrom of contradictions so ridiculous, it might make even Seinfeld's writers blush. That notorious licking exchange. It didn't sound like actual people talking. It sounded like a scene chopped from a bad night of improv where no one knew their lines. And underneath the stumbling dialogue and drama is something much less fun. My hands are totally tied, Kody growled at one point, because everything I own, asset-wise, has everybody else's name on it. That one sentence tells everything. At this point, their marriage appears to be sustained by 2 things, spite and fiscal necessity. Robin, the ever-tactful strategist, is probably quietly taking stock, balancing assets, weighing her own chances, and ensuring that she won't be the one left with nothing when the curtain eventually comes down. Her past establishes one thing. She's not a novice when it comes to self-preservation, even if it means someone else gets hurt. She once found safety in Kody's mayhem. These days she's discovering that chaos isn't exactly a retirement package. Meanwhile, Kody has made his intentions clear for years. This is a man who openly boasted that he moves away from pain and toward pleasure. Translation: when actual emotional work arrives, he's gone. His habit of leaving wives and kids the instant things become awkward isn't quite subtle. For a pair of people who once sold the world a fairy tale of soulmate monogamy, they now resemble business partners with a failing franchise, both waiting for the other to blink first. Robin's present unhappiness has a bitter edge of irony. She was the self-proclaimed sweetheart of polygamy, luxuriating in her favorite status, confusing the public's fascination for love. But when the audience grew smart enough to penetrate the facade, the deliberate victimhood, the passive manipulation, the sugary words clamped over scowls, Robin recoiled from the light she once embraced. Now she sits in that vast mansion that is less a dream house and more a mausoleum. She's bound to a man whose hair has more texture than his ego. And since there are no sister wives remaining to vie with, Robin has lost the sole basis of power she had. Being the chosen one only seemed exhilarating, while there were others she could overtake. Now without competition, the crown she clawed for has become cumbersome, cold and empty. All that is left is a woman too arrogant to depart, too miserable to remain, and too alone to continue the martyr act. Even their once polished public exchanges have soured. Gone is the polite, hostess-like affection she used to hand out when Kody was her prized customer. Now when he complains about a lack of intimacy, she answers with visible disdain, and the cameras catch every flicker of contempt. Their spiritual marriage has at last become what it always subtly suggested it was: an empty affair between two individuals more devoted to their persona than to one another. Both are silently wondering who will leave first. When the funds are depleted and the cameras switch off, there will be no fairy tale ending. Only two individuals sorting through the wreckage of a castle built on self-deception. Robin Brown might have won the crown, but with no competition, she's the queen of nothing. And then there is her so-called romantic past, a story she has always presented like a romantic novel. Robin enjoys telling people she had several baes before Kody. Men were basically lined up, vying for her attention, dodging around barriers to reach her, she says. But the reality behind those proposals is far less idyllic than she makes out. Her account of things depicts her as some sort of Victorian heroine, elegantly deflecting one offer after another, until Kody came along with his golden locks and his espoused declarations. But the chronology, well, that doesn't hold up. She married young, she divorced young, and somewhere in between, she somehow managed to accumulate multiple marriage proposals as a single mother in a conservative religious community. That's no small accomplishment. And while she's never lacking for melodrama and storytelling, the believability of that fairy tale, let's just say it's a little fuzzy around the edges. Unless, of course, the term proposal has been expanded to encompass any guy who carelessly uttered, "We should hook up sometime." Robin's account of what happened appears lenient, to put it mildly. A man flashes her a friendly grin in the supermarket. Evidently he's flirting. Someone offers to go get a cup of coffee. Well, that's all but a courtship ritual. A real date. Naturally he's on one knee proposing. This type of narrative was in full effect at Gwendolyn's engagement party. An innocent passing remark to David was greeted as irrefutable evidence of her irresistible charm. But here's where things begin to fall apart. If Robin indeed had all of these men allegedly pursuing her to the extent of proposal-level discussion, why wasn't she honest with them regarding her devotion to plural marriage? For one who so frequently lectures others on honesty and faith, it is interesting how selectively honest she can be. And come on, this is old behavior. Robin has a history going back years of exaggerating interactions, redefining the past, and mastering the art of being the eternal victim with Olympic-level skill. You can almost visualize it. A nice old gentleman at the church social, laughing, "Honey, I'd marry you in a minute." 2 minutes later he's forgotten the whole thing. But in Robin's version, that careless comment becomes a sincere proposal from a moonstruck lover. If she's including elderly fans, wedded church members voicing innocent compliments, and superficial flirtations as proposals, then okay, the arithmetic begins to work. Middle-aged men telling "I'd marry you were I not engaged" aren't precisely rare. Most grown-ups possess the good sense, however, not to count those as official proposals, or recycle them on national TV. Fair enough, within AUB's close-knit dating pool, her popularity isn't entirely unreasonable. Robin was young, fairly pretty, and most importantly perhaps, not related to half the church. That alone would have made her an outcast. No wonder Christine and Mary used to joke about her being Kody's trophy wife. She was new, shiny, and different. So perhaps the truth lies in between fantasy and technicality. Her many suitors were not precisely a line of men pleading for her hand. They were probably more of a series of innocuous compliments that she subsequently elaborated into grand romantic gestures. Ultimately, it's less a love story than a case study in self-mythology. A woman bent on establishing that, even in a world constructed upon communal husbands, she was always the prize. And if you're here for truth with just a dash of sass, well, you're in the right place.